I think for me, no, handang-handa na tayo because we had 3 years of it working on our system, na mga healthcare capacity system natin na in any event na tataas ng mga kaso like hospital facilities, nakahanda na yan, mga healthcare workers at importante siya rin, no, yung mga gamot, it should be available sa mga doon na nagka-severe COVID. And these are all part of our recommendations na even if we will lift the public health emergency, dapat available pa rin ito para mapigilan natin ang pagtaas ng mortality ng mga naapektuhan ng COVID.
Is the country ready to lift the public health emergency on COVID-19? From the nation's capital, all sides, all the time, I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. The big story tonight.
Let's begin with the U.S. government confirming the visit of Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin to the Philippines. Here's what we know. In a statement, the U.S. Department of Defense said Austin will meet with senior government and military leaders of South Korea and the Philippines in the coming days. This is to, quote, advance regional stability and further strengthen the defense partnerships. The U.S. Defense Department also stressed that the trip reaffirms the deep commitment of the United States to work in concert with allies and partners in support of the shared vision of preserving a free and open Indo-Pacific. Philippine Ambassador to the United States, Jose Manuel Romualdez, recently said that Austin had been planning to visit the Philippines. Romualdez says Austin wants to meet his Filipino counterpart, Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr., who was recently appointed as Secretary of Department of National Defense.
Austin's trip to the Philippines comes after several high-level engagements between Washington and Manila. This includes the meeting between U.S. President Joe Biden and President Bongbong Marcos, as well as U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris's trip to the country, where she sought to show Washington's commitment to Manila, especially amid China's incursions into the West Philippine Sea. Since President Marcos took office, the Philippines has revived the dormant Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, or EDCA, which allows the U.S. to deploy conventional forces to 5 bases in the Philippines. There are currently 5 military sites identified under EDCA. These include Benito Ebuen Air Base in Cebu, Lumbia Airport in Cagayan de Oro, Fort Magsaysay in Nueva Ecija, Antonio Bautista Air Base in Palawan, and the Basa Air Base in Pampanga.
Now, here to give us his insights on U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin's visit to the Philippines, we have with us One News Defense Editor Manny Mogato. Good evening. Welcome to the big story, Manny.
Good evening, Robbie. Good evening, Gretchen.
First of all, this is going to happen in the next days, di ba?
Yes.
In the next few days. Kasama
Yes.
yung South Korea. Is this necessarily a surprise visit?
No, it was already planned well ahead of time. And obviously, Secretary Austin will push for the early approval of 5 more bases in the Philippines. And one of them is an air base in Cagayan, in Lalo, Cagayan. It is very close to Taiwan. So, because the situation in Taiwan is very volatile. The Chinese are sending waves and waves of aircraft every day, and they're doing a lot of exercises around Taiwan. So, the situation is really very tense. And this morning, Reuters reported that a 4-star general in U.S., Mike Minihan, said that he expects China and the U.S. to exchange blows by 2025.
Teka muna, linawin natin na what do you mean by 5 more bases? And to your point that things are already tense, lalong-lalo na if one of those stations or bases that we're looking at is to the north, di ba, alam natin na may tension na dyan ang China and Taiwan, di ba, namumuo ulit.
Well,
what does that mean for...
Well, U.S. is preparing for, we don't know, something else. Because of the situation in Taiwan, it's very unpredictable. Anything can happen, any accidents can happen. So, U.S. is moving their troops and equipment to the Philippines because it's close to Taiwan, it's close to South China Sea, because most of the aircraft of the U.S. are in South Korea or in Japan or in Guam. They are very far from the theater of operations in Taiwan and in South China Sea. If they are based in Manila or in Clark, in Basa Air Base, in Palawan, they can
Mobilize.
probably move around more and faster and longer reconnaissance in the area. So the idea is to go back to their old playground in the Philippines. The problem is in the past, they have the biggest bases here. They are renting to the Philippines of $200 million something, $200
No,
million dollars a year. Yes.
This is Subic and Clark.
Subic and Clark. Now they came back, and we are giving them our own bases so that they can co-locate there for free.
Okay.
Given, let's go to our government. I guess President Bongbong Marcos has said that he wants to have an independent foreign policy. But given the recent encounter in the West Philippine Sea, in the Ayungin Shoal, sabi ni President Xi Jinping that magka-compromise siya. They're going to keep open lines, but they have yet to reach that compromise. So, in a game of chess, should we be, kahit paano, moving away from that safe stance and moving towards the United States to gain more leverage in the negotiations?
Well, yung sinasabi ni Bongbong na friends to all, enemies to none, it's good to hear. No? But in reality, mahirap gawin. Kasi we have a mutual defense treaty with the U.S. So, meron tayong obligation under the treaty to support the Americans. So, in case of a conflict, sabi nga ng general, baka sa 2025, bakbakan yung China at US, nandito sila sa atin, sabi tayo.
Let's talk about EDCA. What does this all mean for reviving the EDCA? And for that matter, yung sinabi mo, di ba? Parang basing rights. I don't know what you call it. Parang, kasi,
it's not,
what legal framework needs to happen para yung scenario na sinasabi mo mangyari?
Ito yung maganda dyan, no? Kasi sabi nila, wala silang bases.
Oo, kaya nga.
Because it is our base. No? They are only co-locating in our base. So, it's a base within a base. No? So, parang bagong senaryo yan sa American security policy. No? And I think they already have similar arrangements. No? Nagsimula yan sa Ecuador. Nung meron silang drug war sa South America, they're using Ecuadorian air bases, no? Para mag-stage ng operation to sa Colombia, Ecuador, sa mga drug, no? So, kinopya yan at ginawa sa Pilipinas.
But is that enough to legally, or even for that matter, constitutionally, have that presence dito sa Pilipinas? However you wanna call it.
Well, pwede sila lumusot kasi nga we have a treaty, yung MDT, no? 1951 Mutual Defense Treaty. So, maski na meron tayong konstitusyon na sinasabi na bawal ang foreign military sa ating Philippine soil, however, may kulatila yan. Ang sinasabi ng konstitusyon, kung may treaty, pwede.
Dito sa treaty na to, matanong ko lang, ano yung, what would constitute as an attack to the Philippines? How about the harassment on our fishermen? Anong level na siya i-invoke?
Wala pang di pa ganong malaki yung harassment, no? Wala. Ang attack dyan is pag ang Philippine vessel, no, like yung Sierra Madre, nasa Ayungin Shoal, tinira ng China, that's an attack on a public
Pero pag
vessel.
fishing vessel?
Hindi.
Hindi.
Sige. Ibalik na lang natin. Last question na lang. So, ibalik natin sa trip ni Austin. What do you expect to come out of those meetings?
Well, number one, si Austin is pushing na pwede ba na madaliin niya na i-approve niya na yung additional 5 bases, no? Kasama yung Lalo, kasama yung Palawan, kasama Zambales. At ang masama sa agreement na to sa EDCA, hindi lang siya military bases Because the US are also using civilian airfields in the Philippines. Like for instance, yung Batanes, ginamit nila nung Gulf War noong 2002, no? Lumilipad dyan, nagla-landing, tsaka take off yung mga fighters galing from Diego Garcia para mag-refuel. Hindi lang yan. ang sabi sa akin, may request pa yung US na gamitin yung lawag. For drone operation. So, hindi lang military bases ang pinag-usapan dito. Pwede lang gamitin, maski civilian bases, under EDCA.
Ostensibly civilian.
Yes.
Oh, sige. Okay. Anyway, maraming salamat, Manny. Mukhang
Thank you.
mahabang usapan pa to. One News Defense Chief Manny Mogato.
The government is sending more personnel to search for the missing Cessna 206 aircraft. Jenny Dongon with the report.
Rain or shine, search operations continue for the missing Cessna 206 plane in Isabela. At least 6 people were reportedly on board the aircraft.
Maraming na-report na nagkatrangkaso kagabi sa sobrang lamig po dyan sa bundok, saka sobrang hirap ng dinaanan nila. Sa testimony po ng mga nakausap natin, may mga malalaking crack na dinadaanan nila, mga butas-butas. So hindi sila pwedeng magtangad-tangad ng kunang tilok kasi baka mahulog sila sa mga crack na nadadaanan.
Authorities are focused on Site Alpha, the area believed to be the crash location. This came after barangay officials saw an object which could be the wreckage of the plane. It is estimated to be a 4 to 5 hour walk from the command post of Barangay Di Caruyan. Due to the mountainous terrain, there is no word yet from the deployed team.
Mahirap po ngayon kasi yung communication through radio, handheld radios lang po ang gamit natin. Medyo choppy-choppy kasi ang ginagawa namin, may mobile antenna kami, nilalapit namin doon sa area para ma-receive natin yung mga information.
Even members of the Dumaga tribe have joined the search. The Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines, or CAAP, has tapped their counterparts in Japan and Hong Kong, but both did not receive a distress alert from the missing aircraft.
Pangatlo natin yung aming CNSA dito, yung radar, negative din yung info na hindi malocate yung nasa aircraft.
The agency said the plane's emergency locator transmitter may not have been activated. The mother of 2 missing passengers expressed her gratitude to the rescuers, but she has a request to the national government.
Kung pwedeng may magawa silang tulong from all the departments ng mga LGU natin, mga PNP, FP or whatever, Navy, kung pwede po silang mga mag-dispatch ng mga tao nila to help for the ground search.
More personnel will be deployed on Tuesday for the search operation. This include over 50 members of the Police Special Action Force and 10 Bureau of Fire Protection officers. For News 5, Jenny Dongon, we are One News.
After the break, is COVID-19 no longer a public health emergency for the Philippines? We'll look at the numbers with Octa Professor Guido David when the big story returns. Keep it here on One News. watching the big story here on One News.
COVID-19 may no longer be a public health emergency, although it remains to be a global concern. That's according to Health Department Advisor Dr. Ronjin Solante. Solante notes that unlike before, we now have vaccines against COVID-19. The infectious disease expert also says that countries have already developed interventions to manage the virus. Despite this, Solante says government should continue prioritizing the protection of vulnerable people like the elderly and persons with comorbidities. The World Health Organization has started its review on whether to lift the public health emergency status for COVID-19 after 3 years. And here to run the numbers on COVID-19, we have Octa Fellow Professor Guido David. Good evening. Welcome back to The Big Story, Professor David.
Yes, hi. Good evening, Robbie and Gretchen, and thank you for having me.
Okay, now, first off, what are the basic numbers that we need to know? And then my second question is, what numbers should we be looking at this point? What's important for us to know and to look at?
Well, the basic numbers are that, for example, we're averaging 56 cases per day in Metro Manila. In the whole Philippines, we're averaging just around 200 cases per day. And these are very good numbers if we're just looking at the raw numbers. We're also looking at the positivity rate and the healthcare utilization. So if on the surface it looks like the number of cases is very manageable in terms of hospitalization, and right now the positivity rate's less than 2% in the entire country, then it looks manageable. But there are other factors that we should look into, Robbie and Gretchen.
I imagine positivity rate is more important to look at, especially given that not many people are getting tested anyway. But is there anything important to parse through, even on that 2% for positivity rate? Is there another way of looking at it? Is there anything we're not missing, notwithstanding that it is a rate?
Well, it is a rate, and the trend of the population. And we acknowledge that testing now is not as much or it's not as high as it used to be. In fact, we're probably at the lowest point in terms of testing because we only count RT-PCR test results. If we're including antigen test results, the numbers will probably be higher. But the other factor that we should really be looking into now is the effect of long COVID in the population. And in the US, they're saying that 15% of the labor force probably has long COVID. And what this means is that if this is happening in the Philippines, there will be some people who are in the labor force who may not be able to function properly, or may not be able to work because of the long-term effects of COVID. And this is one of the things that is post-pandemic that we should be looking into, the long-term impact of COVID.
The WHO maintains that COVID is still a global public health emergency, but they are looking to lower the levels of alert this year. What is your take on the vaccination rate given those pronouncements? Where are we there, and should we continue on, targeting higher vaccination, given that everybody's, kind of saying that this isn't too big of a problem anymore?
Well, that's it, Gretchen. Most people consider COVID to be not a problem anymore. In our own survey, only 9% of the public said it's still a national emergency. So in terms of vaccination, while we have many Filipinos who are fully vaccinated, our booster coverage is very low, especially compared to other ASEAN countries. And even our second booster coverage is also minimal. And in terms of vaccine coverage, we're not there yet in terms of boosters. But the problem is many Filipinos have decided not to get these additional boosters. It may change if we get the new bivalent vaccines. More people might opt to get these new boosters. The problem, of course, is that since most people don't consider it a threat anymore. Even without a WHO pronouncement, the booster coverage or vaccination rate and booster rates have slowed down dramatically. And it's not clear if people will continue to get vaccinated or boosted in big numbers once the bivalent vaccines do come in the Philippines.
I mean, we're talking about what seems to be a lot of stable numbers, but does that apply nationwide equally, or are there any outlier regions that we still should be watching?
Well, as of right now, Robbie, nationwide the numbers are good, but we don't. We don't expect this to continue forever. We hope that numbers will continue down to zero, but the situations that new subvariants arise, and it could happen that there will be a new subvariant. I'm hoping not, because the global numbers are trending downwards, and except for the other subvariants that we already have had, we're not monitoring any new threatening subvariants. So maybe this will reduce cases down to a minimum. But you can never tell with COVID, because anytime there could be a new subvariant, and that will change the dynamic. I mean. And if it starts in the NCR like it always does, it will propagate to the entire Philippines. And, we might still have waves of infection this year, whether we like it or not.
Okay, Professor, maraming salamat. That was Okta Research Fellow Professor Guido David.
The Education Department is now looking into an alleged bullying incident inside a school in Davao City. Jem Avancenia with a report.
This student struggles for air while being choked inside a restroom in Ateneo de Davao University. Another student tried to stop the fight while others can be heard laughing behind the camera. This video has been making rounds on social media. Davao City Police said they did not receive any report regarding the incident. School officials also refused to be interviewed, but in a Facebook post, the school said they already met with the involved students and their parents. They added that an investigation is underway. The university assured the public that appropriate interventions will be implemented. Parents, however, have expressed concern over the bullying shown in the video.
As parent po, confident po ako na hindi po ito tolerate. Hindi talaga nila gina-tolerate yan. Talagang nandoon sa book na nila na bullying is not tolerated talaga. So I hope na maging okay lahat.
The Education Department is now also looking into the matter.
We still coordinate with the schools to ensure na meron pong investigation na nangyayari, at meron din silang, whether it be programs on bullying or other programs that are related dun sa pagpapatakbo nila ng mga polisiya natin. So that is what we're doing right now.
For News 5, Jem Avancenia, we are One News.
After the break, will volleyball star Jaja Santiago no longer be suiting up for the national team? The details when the big story returns. Keep it here on One News. some consumers are turning to frozen eggs as prices of the commodity remain high. These are cracked eggs put together in a container and kept inside a refrigerator. Frozen eggs are sold at 55 pesos a kilo in markets, much cheaper than a tray of normal eggs. But the Philippine Egg Board has warned the public against buying and consuming the products. The group said frozen eggs are prone to bacteria which may cause salmonella or food poisoning.
Kasi yung basag na itlog, pagka pinamalagi mo yan, ang ganyan basag, ang bilis kapitan ng bakterya. Ang tawag namin dyan seedless. Pagkatapos dyan, ilalagay ka agad sa freezer para hindi na dapuan ng bakterya.
Now for the big story in sports. EJ Obiana and Jaja Santiago made headlines in sports earlier today, but for two very different reasons. Here's why. Pole vaulter EJ Obiana's 2023 campaign is off to a good start as the world number 3 captured gold last Sunday in the Persian Or in Roubaix, France. Obiana cleared 5.82 meters on his first attempt to top the field. The 27-year-old Obiana bested China's Yao Jie, who placed second with 5.75 meters, and Ethan Kermont of France at third place with 5.65 meters. Prior to this, Obiana recently bagged silver at the International Jump meeting in Germany. Obiana is set to compete in Sweden on February 2.
As Jaja Santiago serves.
In volleyball, the Philippine women's team suffers a big blow as national team coach Jorge De Brito revealed that 6'5" middle blocker Jaja Santiago will not be available for the 32nd Southeast Asian Games set in Cambodia this May. According to De Brito, Jaja is in the process of acquiring a Japanese citizenship.
When we finish the process there in Japan, I think she can play for the national team from Japan. From the last competition, she cannot join because there's some rules that she has to follow.
Jaja's camp, on the other hand, has yet to release a formal statement on the issue, but the volleyball star has replied that nothing is certain as of the moment. The Philippine National Volleyball Federation, meanwhile, also released the names of the players included in the pool for the 32nd Southeast Asian Games. And the team includes 6 players from Creamline with the likes of Alyssa Valdez, Gia Morado, and Tots Carlos, as well as other PVL players such as Cherry Tigo's Mylene Paat, and those from Choco Mucho, Signal, PLDT, and Petrogas. The SEA Games volleyball tournament is set to happen from May 5 to May 16 in Cambodia. Gretchen Hall, We Are One News.
Before we go, we leave you with a word of warning against pickpockets posing as food delivery riders. Police arrested 3 individuals for stealing cell phones in Manila on board a motorcycle. Authorities said that one of the suspects wore a pink shirt that's identified with a certain food delivery app in order to avoid attention. It's a good thing karma caught up fast. The suspects were arrested after being flagged down for not wearing helmets. Police were able to retrieve the stolen items and have them returned to their owners.
Riding in tandem.
Well, anyway, that's the big story tonight. For more updates, follow News 5, The Philippine Star, and Business World Online. You may also log on to onenews.ph for more analysis. Ako po si Robbie Alampay.
The big story is also available via Signal Play app. Make your free account now at signalplay.com and stream One News anytime, anywhere. Ako po si Gretchen Ho. Stay safe, Philippines.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.